how the states of angels in heaven change. By the changes of angel states, we mean their changes in regard to love and faith, and therefore in regard to wisdom and intelligence. To the state of their life, that is. States are attributes of life and of matters that pertain to life, and since angelic life is a life of love and faith, and thereby of wisdom and intelligence, states are attributes of these, and we talk about states of love and faith, and states of wisdom and intelligence. Now we need to describe how these states change for angels. Angels are not constantly in the same state as to love, and consequently they are not in the same state as to wisdom, for all the wisdom they have is from their love and in proportion to it. Sometimes they are in a state of intense love, sometimes in a state of love that is not intense. It decreases gradually from its most to its least intense. When they are in the highest level of love, they are in the light and warmth of their lives, or in their greatest clarity and delight. Conversely, when they are in the lowest level, they are in shadow and coolness, or in what is dim and unpleasant. From this latter state, they return to the first, and so on. The phases follow each other with constant variety. These states follow each other like variations of light and shade, warmth and cold, or like the morning, noon, evening, and night of individual days in our world, varying constantly throughout the year. Not only that, they correspond, morning to the state of their love in clarity, noon to the state of their wisdom in clarity, evening to the state of their wisdom in dimness, and night to a state of no love or wisdom. It should be known, though, that there is no correspondence of night with the states of life of people in heaven, but rather a correspondence of the half-light that comes before dawn. The correspondence of night is with people who are in hell. Because of this correspondence, day and year in the word mean states of life in general. Warmth and light mean love and wisdom. Morning, the first and highest level of love. Noon wisdom in its light, evening wisdom in its shade, and the half-light the dimness that comes just before the morning. Night, though, means the loss of love and wisdom. As the states of the inner levels of angels' love and wisdom change, so too do the states of the various things that surround them and are visible to their eyes. For the things that surround angels are given their appearance according to the things that are within them. We will describe what these are and what they are like in later chapters, where we discuss representations and appearances in heaven. Each individual angel undergoes and passes through changes of state like this, and so too does each community collectively. Still, one individual does so differently from another, because people vary in love and wisdom. There are people in the middle, in a more perfect state than those who are around them all the way to the borders. But it would take too long to recount the differences, since the quality of love and faith determines how each individual undergoes the changes. As a result, one person may experience clarity and joy, while another is enveloped in confusion and distress, even at the same time within the same community. It happens differently in one community than in another too, and in communities of the heavenly kingdom differently than in communities of the spiritual kingdom. Broadly speaking, the differences in their changes of state are like the variations of states of days in one climate and another on earth. There it is morning for some people, while it is evening for others, and some have warmth while others are cold, and vice versa. I have been told from heaven why changes of state like this occur. Angels have said that there are many reasons. First, the delight of life and of heaven, that angels enjoy because of the love and wisdom given them by the Lord, would gradually pall if they were constantly engaged in it, the way it happens for people who are involved in pleasures and enjoyments without variety. A second reason is that angels have a sense of self or self-image, just as we do, and this involves loving themselves. all the people in heaven are kept free of their sense of self, and to the extent that the Lord does keep them free, they enjoy love and wisdom. To the extent that they are not kept free, however, they are caught up in love for themselves. And since all of them do love that sense of self and carry it with them, these changes of state or successive alternations do occur. A third reason is that they are made more perfect in this way, since they become accustomed to being kept in love for the Lord and kept free from love for themselves. Further, by these alternations of delight and discomfort, their perception of and sensitivity to what is good become more and more delicate. They have gone on to say that the Lord does not produce these changes of their states, since the Lord as the sun is always flowing in with warmth and light, that is, with love and wisdom. Rather, they themselves are the cause, since they love their sense of self, and this is constantly misleading them. They illustrate this by comparison with our world's sun, which is not the cause of the changes of warmth and cold, and of light and darkness, of distinct years and distinct days, because it stays motionless. The cause can be traced back to our planet. I have been shown how the Lord as the sun looks to angels in the heavenly kingdom in their first state, in their second state, and in their third. I saw the Lord as the sun, at first reddish and gleaming, so brilliant as to be beyond description. I was told that the Lord as the sun looks like this to angels in their first state. Later, I saw a great dim halo around the sun, because of which the reddish gleaming quality that made the sun so brilliant began to dim. I was told that the sun looks like this to them in their second state. Then I saw the halo become darker, so that the sun seemed less ruddy, step by step, until finally it looked quite pale. I was told that the sun looks like this to them in their third state. After this, I saw that pale disk move to the left toward heaven's moon, and add its light to the light of the moon, so that the moon shone exceptionally brightly. I was told that this was the fourth state of people in the heavenly kingdom, and the first state of people in the spiritual kingdom. I was also told that the changes of state in each kingdom proceed alternately, not throughout, but in one community after another. I was also told that these alternations are not fixed, but happen more or less swiftly without people being aware of it. Angels went on to say that the sun in and of itself neither changes nor moves, but that things look the way they do because of the ongoing progressions of state in themselves, since the Lord appears to each individual in keeping with that individual's state, reddish to people when they are in an intense love, less ruddy, and ultimately pale as their love wanes. The quality of their state is portrayed by the dim halo that imposes the apparent changes of flame and light on the sun. When angels are in this last state, which is when they are involved in their sense of self, they begin to feel depressed. I have talked with them when they were in this state and witnessed their depression. They kept saying, though, that they lived in hope that they would soon return to their earlier state and be in heaven again, so to speak, since heaven for them is being kept free from their sense of self. There are also changes of state in the hells, but these will be described later when I deal with hell. Time in heaven. Even though things keep happening in sequence and progressing in heaven the way they do in the world, still angels have no notion or concept of time and space. The lack is so complete that they simply do not know what time and space are. Here we will discuss time in heaven, leaving space to be discussed in its own chapter. The reason angels do not know what time is, even though everything for them moves along in sequence just the way it does in our world, so much so that there is no difference, is that in heaven there are no years or days, but only changes of state. Where there are years and days, there are times, and where there are changes of state, there are states. The reason we have times in our world is that the sun seems to move sequentially from one zone to another, and to make the times we call the seasons of the year. It also moves around the earth and makes the times we call times of day, and it does these by fixed periods. It is different for heaven's sun. It does not make years and days by sequential motions and rotations, but makes apparent changes of state, and it does not make these by fixed periods, as explained in the preceding chapter. This is why angels are incapable of having any concept of time, but have a concept of state instead. What state is may be seen above. Since angels have no concept derived from time, as we in our world do, they have no concept of time, or of the things that depend on time. They do not even know what all these temporal things are, like a year, a month, a week, a day, an hour, today, tomorrow, or yesterday. When angels hear these expressions from one of us, angels are always kept in contact with us by the Lord. They perceive states instead, and things that have to do with states. So our natural concept is changed into a spiritual concept with the angels. This is why expressions of time in the word mean states, and why things proper to time, like the ones listed above, mean the spiritual things that correspond to them. It is much the same for all the things that occur as a result of time, such as the 4 seasons of the year called spring, summer, autumn, and winter, the 4 times of day called morning, noon, evening, and night, our own 4 ages called infancy, youth, maturity, and old age, and with the other things that either occur as a result of time or happen in temporal sequence. When we think about them, it is from a temporal standpoint, but an angel thinks about them from the standpoint of state. Consequently, anything in them that is temporal for us changes into an idea of state for the angel. Spring and morning change into an idea of love and wisdom the way they are for angels in their first state. Summer and noon change into an idea of love and wisdom as they are in the second state. Autumn and evening as they are in the third state, and night and winter into a concept of the kind of state that is characteristic in hell. This is why similar things are meant by these times in the word. We can see from this how the natural concepts that occur in our thought become spiritual for the angels who are with us. Since angels have no notion of time, they have a different concept of eternity than we earthly people do. By eternity, angels perceive an infinite state, not an infinite time. I was thinking about eternity once, and using a concept of time, I could grasp what to eternity entailed, namely, without end, but not what from eternity entailed, and therefore not what God did before creation, from eternity. As my anxiety mounted because of this, I was raised into the sphere of heaven and therefore into the perception of eternity shared by angels. This shed light for me on the fact that we ought not to think about eternity in temporal terms, but in terms of state, and that when we do, we can grasp what from eternity entails. The angels who talk with us never use the natural concepts that are proper to us, all of which derive from time, space, matter, and the like. They use spiritual concepts, all of which derive from states and their various changes in and around angels. However, when the angelic concepts, which are spiritual, flow into us, they change instantly and spontaneously into those natural concepts proper to us that exactly correspond to the spiritual ones. Neither the angels nor we are aware of this, but still, this is how all inflow of heaven occurs for us. There were some angels who were let very intimately into my thoughts, all the way into natural ones that contained a mass of material from time and space. However, since at that point they could not understand anything at all, they promptly withdrew, and after they had withdrawn, I heard them talking, saying that they had been in darkness. I have been allowed to know from experience what angels' ignorance of time is like. There was a particular individual from heaven whose nature did allow him to be let into natural concepts such as we have. I talked with him afterward, person to person, and at first he did not know what it was that I was calling time. So I actually had to tell him how the sun seems to travel around our earth and make years and days, and that as a result, years are divided into 4 seasons and into months and weeks, and days into 24 hours, and that these times recur at fixed intervals. This gives rise to our expressions for time. He was astonished when he heard this and said that he had not known that kind of thing, but only what states were. In the course of our conversation, I mentioned that it was known in our world that there is no time in heaven. We do actually talk as though we knew, since when people die, we say that they have left temporal things and have passed beyond time, meaning that they have left our world. I also said that it is known by some that times are states in origin because they recognize that times are experienced in precise accord with the states of affection we are caught up in. They are short for us when we are engaged in pleasant and cheerful pursuits, and long when we are engaged in distasteful and depressing ones, and variable when we are in hope or expectation. As a result, scholars are asking what time and space are, and some of them even recognize that time is an attribute of the natural person. A natural person may believe that we would have no thought if concepts of time, space, and matter were taken away from us, that all our thought is based on these foundations. Let such people know, though, that thoughts are limited and constrained to the extent that they derive from time, space, and matter, and that they are freed and expanded to the extent that they do not derive from such things, because to the same extent the mind is elevated beyond the body and worldly concerns. This is the source of angels' wisdom, which is so great that we must call it incomprehensible, since it does not fit into ideas that are formed merely from these lower concerns.